The war had lasted 10 years. 10 years of burning planets, dying soldiers, and endless fear. The Vorn Collective wanted everything. They wanted every star, every moon, every piece of rock floating in space. And they were winning. The Galactic Coalition had tried everything. They had sent their best ships. They had used their smartest strategies. Nothing worked. The Vorn kept coming like a disease that could not be cured. So the Coalition built something new, something massive, something terrifying. They called it the Titan. The Titan was a machine that stood 200 meters tall. It walked on 2 legs like a giant metal man. It had weapons that could destroy cities. It had shields that could stop nuclear bombs. It was the most powerful thing the Coalition had ever created. But there was a problem. The Titan was too complex for one pilot. Its systems were too many, too complicated. One brain could not handle all of it. The Coalition's best scientists had done the math 1,000 times. They needed 10 pilots working together, 10 minds connected to one machine. Each pilot would control one part, one for walking, one for weapons, one for shields, one for targeting enemies, one for power, one for communications, one for emergencies, one for reading the ground, one for flying, and one to connect all the others together. 10 pilots, 10 of the best soldiers in the galaxy. The Coalition had trained them for 2 years. They were ready. And then the Vorn killed all of them. Station Amber 7 was a large space station floating near the edge of Coalition territory. It was supposed to be safe. It was supposed to be far from the fighting. That was why they kept the Titan there, waiting for its first mission. The Vorn found it anyway. The attack came without warning. 3 ships appeared from nowhere, their dark hulls glowing with strange light. They fired before anyone could react. The first blast hit the pilot barracks directly. All 10 pilots died in their sleep. Alarms screamed through the station. Red lights flashed in every hallway. People ran in all directions, not knowing where to go or what to do. Admiral Dreth stood in the command center, watching the destruction on his screens. He was a Kelvin, a species that looked like giant insects standing on 2 legs. His hard shell was dark green, and his forearms were shaking with anger. "The pilots are dead," one of his officers reported. "All of them." Dreth made a clicking sound with his mouth. It was how Kelvin showed frustration. "Then the Titan is useless. We have no one to fly it." "We could retreat, Admiral. Save what we can." "Retreat where? The Vorn will follow. They always follow." In another part of the station, a young man was running toward the hangar where the Titan was kept. His name was Kang Taeho, and he was nobody important. He was just a maintenance worker. He fixed broken pipes and cleaned dirty filters. He was 28 years old, with messy black hair and tired eyes. Taeho was human. His species had joined the Coalition only 3 years ago, and nobody respected them. Humans were weak. Humans were slow. Humans came from a small planet in a forgotten corner of the galaxy. The other species looked at humans the way a person might look at a stray dog. But Taeho had a secret. For 2 years, he had studied the Titan. Every night, after his work was done, he would find the old files and read them. He memorized every wire, every system, every piece of code. He did not know why. Maybe he was bored. Maybe he was dreaming of being something more than a cleaner. Whatever the reason, he knew that machine better than he knew his own body. Now, as the station burned around him, Taeho made a decision. He reached the command center just as Admiral Dreth was ordering an evacuation. The room was full of officers running back and forth, shouting at each other. Nobody noticed the small human standing by the door. "Admiral," Taeho said. Nobody heard him. "Admiral," he shouted louder. Dreth turned around. His large black eyes looked at Taeho with confusion. "Who are you? Why are you here? This area is for officers only." "My name is Kang Taeho. I am a maintenance technician. I want to pilot the Titan." The room went quiet. Every officer stopped moving and stared at the human. Then Dreth laughed. It was an ugly sound, like stones grinding together. "You, a human? You want to pilot a machine that requires 10 of our finest soldiers?" Dreth stepped closer, towering over Teho like a mountain. "Your species cannot even build proper starships. You still fight wars over water and land, and you think you can control the most advanced weapon in the galaxy?" "Yes," Teho said. His voice did not shake. "The neural load alone would kill you in seconds. Your tiny brain would melt inside your skull." "Maybe. But if I do nothing, everyone on this station dies anyway." An explosion rocked the station. The lights flickered. On the screens, the Vorn ships were getting closer. Another officer spoke up. "Admiral, we have no other options. The evacuation ships are not ready. If we do not stop the Vorn now, they will destroy us all." Dreth looked at the screens, then back at Teho. The human was small and weak and completely ordinary. There was nothing special about him. He was just a cleaner who had read some files. But he was also the only one willing to try. "Fine," Dreth said. "Go. Die in that machine if you want. It will not matter anyway." Teho nodded and turned to leave. "Human," Dreth called after him, "when you fail, try not to damage the Titan too much. Perhaps someday we will find real pilots for it." Teho did not answer. He just kept walking, his heart beating fast, his mind already connecting to the thousands of systems waiting for him in that giant metal body. Behind him, Lieutenant Yuna watched him go. She was human too, one of the few on the station. She worked in communications, sending messages between ships. She had never spoken to Teho before, but she knew his name. She had seen him working late at night, reading files he was not supposed to read. She did not know if he would succeed. She did not know if any human could do what he was about to try. But as she watched him walk toward the hangar, she felt something she had not felt in a long time. The inside of the Titan smelled like metal and old air. Nobody had been inside for weeks. The machine had been waiting, sleeping like a giant beast, dreaming of war. Teho climbed through the narrow hallways until he reached the pilot chamber. It was a round room filled with screens and controls. 10 chairs were arranged in a circle, each one facing a different set of panels. Each chair was designed for a Kelvin body, with 4 armrests instead of 2, and a seat that was far too wide for a human. Teho stood in the middle of the room and looked around. His hands were shaking. His breath was fast and uneven. For a moment, he wanted to run away. He wanted to go back to his small room and hide under his bed, like a child. But then he heard another explosion outside. The station shook. Somewhere far away, people were screaming. He could not run. There was nowhere to run to. Teho walked to the main chair, the one in the center. This was where the neural coordinator was supposed to sit. This was the pilot who connected all the others, who made 10 minds work as one. He sat down and immediately felt how wrong the chair was. It was too big, too hard, built for a body that was not his. He took off his jacket and folded it behind his back. It was not comfortable, but it would have to do. The neural helmet hung above him, a mass of wires and sensors, waiting to connect to his brain. Teho pulled it down and placed it on his head. It was heavy and cold. The sensors pressed against his skull like tiny fingers. A voice spoke in his ear. It was Lieutenant Yuna. "Teho, I connected to your communication channel. I will help you however I can." "Thank you," he said. His voice was dry. "The Vorn ships are 2 minutes away. The station shields will not hold much longer." He had 2 minutes to figure out how to control a machine that was built for 10 people. Teho closed his eyes and let his mind connect to the Titan systems. Information flooded into his brain like water from a broken dam. Thousands of numbers, readings, warnings, and reports all came at once. For a second, he felt like he was drowning. In the command center, Admiral Dreth watched a screen showing Tejo's brain activity. The lines were going crazy, jumping up and down like a heartbeat during a heart attack. His neural load is at 300% of human capacity, Dr. Minji reported. She was a scientist who studied different species. Her skin was pale blue, and her eyes were large and round. He should be unconscious by now, or dead. Perhaps he will be soon, Dreth said. He did not sound sad about it. But Tejo did not die. He did not even pass out. Instead, something strange happened. The crazy lines became patterns. The patterns became rhythms. It was like watching a storm slowly turn into a dance. Dr. Minji leaned closer to the screen. That is impossible. His brain is adapting. It is splitting itself into different sections, each one handling a different system. That cannot be right, another officer said. No species can do that. The brain does not work that way. Human brains do. Everyone turned to look at Lieutenant Yuna. She was standing in the corner, watching Tejo's vital signs on her own small screen. What did you say? Dreth demanded. Human brains are different, Yuna explained. We evolved on a dangerous planet. We had to watch for predators, while finding food, while taking care of children, while talking to each other, while remembering where water was. We had to do many things at once, or we died. She pointed at the screen showing Tejo's brain. We do not focus on one thing perfectly. We do many things at the same time. It is messy and inefficient, but it works. Inside the Titan, Tejo was no longer drowning. He was swimming. His left hand found the locomotion controls. He did not need to look at them. His fingers already knew where they were. His right hand moved to the weapon systems. His feet pressed against the shield controls on the floor. He was not thinking about each action separately. He was doing all of them at once, the way a person walks and talks and breathes without thinking about it. Voice command active, the Titan's computer said. Targeting system, connect to my vocal input, Tejo ordered. Power regulation, connect to my neural implant. Emergency protocols set to automatic response. The systems connected one by one. Tejo felt them joining his mind, like fingers joining a hand. Each one was separate, but together they were something more. Neural load at 400%, Dr. Minji said quietly. He should be brain dead. Why is he not brain dead? Because humans are insane, Yuna said. There was pride in her voice. Outside the station, the Vorn ships were in position. Their weapons glowed with terrible energy, ready to fire. Inside the Titan, Tejo opened his eyes. The screens around him showed everything. He could see the station, the ships, the stars, the empty space between them. He could feel the Titan's body like it was his own. Its legs were his legs, its arms were his arms, its weapons were his fists. Tejo, Yuna's voice came through the communication system. The Vorn are about to fire. What are you doing? I am standing up, he said. The Titan moved. In the command center, every officer stopped breathing. On the screens, they watched the giant machine rise from its dock. It stood on two legs, perfectly balanced, like a human standing up from a chair. Its arms lifted. Its head turned toward the Vorn ships. Admiral Dreth's mandibles fell open. In his 200 years of life, he had never seen anything like this. One pilot, one human pilot, controlling a machine built for 10. That is not possible, he whispered. But it was happening. Tejo rolled his shoulders, and the Titan rolled its shoulders. He cracked his neck, and the Titan's head moved from side to side. He smiled, and somewhere deep in the machine's code, something that might have been joy flickered to life. Titan pilot to command, Tejo said. His voice was calm now, steady and strong. I am ready for combat. Lieutenant Yuna laughed out loud. She could not help it. Everyone in the command center turned to look at her, but she did not care. Go get him, she said. The Titan walked forward, each step shaking the hangar floor. The doors opened in front of it, revealing the darkness of space and the glowing shapes of enemy ships. Taeho took a deep breath. His nose was starting to bleed. His head was pounding like a drum. Every part of his body was telling him to stop, to let go, to give up. He ignored all of it. "Let us see what this thing can do," he said to himself. And then he charged into battle. Space was silent. It was always silent. Sound could not travel where there was no air. But inside the Titan, Taeho could hear everything. He could hear his own heartbeat, fast and loud. He could hear the hum of the machine's power core. He could hear the soft voice of Yuna in his ear, giving him information about the enemy. 3 Vorn cruisers, she said. Each one is about 500 meters long. They have plasma weapons, missile launchers, and fighter drones. Taeho, each of those ships could destroy a small moon. Good to know, Taeho said. He did not sound scared. He did not have time to be scared. The Titan floated in space outside the station, its metal body catching the light of distant stars. It looked small compared to the Vorn ships. It looked like a toy standing in front of monsters. The first Vorn cruiser fired. A beam of bright green plasma shot through space, hot enough to melt anything it touched. It moved fast, faster than most pilots could react. Taeho was not most pilots. He felt the attack coming before his sensors warned him. His body moved without thinking, and the Titan moved with him. The giant machine stepped to the side, and the plasma beam passed by so close that the heat damaged the paint on its shoulder. In the command center, officers gasped. Admiral Dreth leaned forward, his black eyes wide. "Did that machine just dodge?" someone asked. "It moved like a person," Dr. Minji whispered, "like it was alive." Taeho did not give the Vorn time to fire again. His right hand moved, and the Titan's arm raised. The rail cannons on its forearm were the size of buildings. They fired solid metal projectiles at speeds that turned them into deadly missiles. He fired 3 times. Each shot hit the first cruiser in a different place. Explosions bloomed across its surface like flowers made of fire. But the Vorn were not easy to kill. The cruiser's hull was made of organic material that could heal itself. Already the holes were closing, the ship repairing the damage. "Taeho, the cruiser is regenerating," Yuna reported. "You need to hit its core directly." "I know," Taeho said. "Keep them busy. I have an idea." He pushed the Titan forward, using its thrusters to fly through space. At the same time, he raised his left arm and activated the shield generators. A wall of blue energy appeared in front of him, just in time to block a wave of missiles from the second cruiser. The missiles exploded against the shield. The force pushed the Titan back, but Taeho kept his balance. His mind was working on 100 things at once, flying, shielding, watching the enemy, planning his next move. Blood was running from his nose now. It floated in front of his face in small red drops, drifting in the zero gravity inside the cockpit. He ignored it. The Vorn fighter drones arrived. They were small ships, each one piloted by a Vorn soldier. They swarmed around the Titan like angry insects, firing their weapons at every joint and gap in its armor. Taeho smiled. He had been waiting for this. His voice spoke a command, and the Titan's point defense systems activated. Small guns hidden all over its body started firing automatically, shooting down drones faster than any eye could follow. At the same time, Taeho kept moving forward, kept firing his main weapons, kept blocking the plasma beams from the cruisers. "His neural load is at 500% now," Dr. Minji said in the command center. Her voice was shaking. "His brain is producing chemicals that should not exist in those amounts. He should be dead 10 times over." "But he is not," Lieutenant Yuna said. She was watching the battle with tears in her eyes. She had never felt so proud to be human. The first cruiser was getting closer now. Taeho could see the wound in its side where his rail cannons had hit it. The hole was almost closed, but not completely. There was still an opening, still a path to the core. He made his decision. The Titan reached down to its hip and pulled out its plasma blade. The weapon was designed for close combat, a sword of pure energy that could cut through almost anything. It extended to its full length, 50 meters of glowing blue death. "Taeho, what are you doing?" Yuna asked. "You are getting too close." "Close is good," Taeho said. "Close means they cannot run." He flew straight at the first cruiser. The Vorn fired everything they had at him. Plasma beams, missiles, cannon shots. Taeho dodged some and blocked others. His shield flickered and sparked. Parts of the Titan's armor melted away. Warning lights flashed inside the cockpit. He did not stop. The Titan crashed into the cruiser's hull and stabbed its blade deep into the wound. The plasma cut through the organic material like a hot knife through butter. Taeho pushed it deeper and deeper until he felt the resistance change. He had reached the core. "Goodbye," he whispered. He twisted the blade and pulled it out. Then he pushed off from the dying cruiser and flew backward as fast as he could. The explosion was beautiful. The cruiser's core broke apart, releasing all its energy at once. The ship did not burn. It vaporized. One moment it was there, and the next moment it was nothing but light and heat and memory. In the command center, officers started cheering. Even Admiral Dreth made a sound that might have been approval. But Taeho was not celebrating. He was looking at the other two cruisers. They had stopped attacking. They were watching the place where their companion had died. Then they turned toward the Titan, and their weapons started glowing brighter than before. "They are angry now," Yuna said quietly. "Good," Taeho replied. His voice was rough, his throat dry. His body was failing. He could feel it. His muscles were shaking. His vision was getting blurry. Every breath felt like lifting a heavy weight. But he was not done yet. "Come on then," he said to the Vorn ships. "Let me show you what happens when you attack my home." The second cruiser fired. The third cruiser fired. The space between them and the Titan filled with death. And Taeho flew straight into it, laughing like a madman, his broken body pushing a machine that should have been impossible to control, fighting a battle that should have been impossible to win. Because that was what humans did. They did impossible things. They refused to die when they should. They kept fighting when every logical reason told them to stop. And sometimes, just sometimes, they won. The battle for Station Amber 7 had only just begun. The second Vorn cruiser died screaming. Taeho could not actually hear the scream, but he felt it through the Titan's sensors. The ship's organic hull made a frequency of pain and fear as it broke apart. A radio signal that sounded almost like a living creature begging for its life. Taeho did not feel sorry for it. He could not afford to feel sorry. His body was falling apart, and he still had one more enemy to kill. The Titan floated in space among the debris of two destroyed cruisers. Its armor was damaged in dozens of places. One of its arms was barely working. Sparks flew from its joints whenever it moved. But it was still standing. It was still fighting. Inside the cockpit, Taeho was in worse condition than his machine. Blood was coming from his nose, his ears, and the corners of his eyes. His hands were shaking so badly that he could barely hold the controls. Every few seconds, his vision went black for a moment before coming back. "Taeho, your vital signs are critical," Yuna's voice said in his ear. She sounded scared. "Your heart rate is 240 beats per minute. Your brain is swelling. You need to stop." "Cannot stop," Taeho said. His words were slow, each one requiring effort. "One more ship. You will die." "Maybe." He coughed, and blood came out of his mouth. It floated in front of his face, in red bubbles. But not before I finish this. The third Vorn cruiser was different from the others. It was bigger, darker, and covered with strange symbols that glowed with purple light. This was no ordinary ship. This was a command vessel, carrying one of the most dangerous Vorn leaders in the galaxy. On that ship, Warlord Gorath stood on his bridge and watched the Titan through the viewing screen. Gorath was old, even by Vorn standards. His gray skin hung loose on his bones. His eyes were small and red, like drops of blood in a face made of stone. He had lived for 300 years. He had conquered 47 planets. He had killed more people than he could count. And he had never, in all that time, seen anything like what he was seeing now. "What is that thing?" he asked his officers. "What is piloting it?" "Our intelligence says it is a human, Warlord," one of them answered. A human? Gorath tasted the word like it was something bitter. Those weak creatures from the primitive planet? They can barely travel between stars. How is one of them doing this? Nobody had an answer. Gorath watched the Titan destroy his second cruiser with a combination of rail cannon shots and plasma blade strikes. The machine moved like it was alive, like it was angry. It did not fight like a pilot controlling a vehicle. It fought like a warrior using its own body. "Interesting," Gorath said softly. "Very interesting." He turned to his weapons officer. "Prepare all main cannons. We will destroy this human and its toy machine." "Yes, Warlord." Back in space, Tejo was trying to stay conscious. His body wanted to sleep. It wanted to shut down, to escape from the pain and exhaustion. Every cell in his brain was screaming for rest. He refused to listen. "Tejo!" A new voice came through the communication system. It was Commander Sunwoo, another human from the station. He was one of the few humans who had any military rank. "I am coming to help you. I have a shuttle." "No," Tejo said immediately. "Stay back. You cannot fight alone anymore. Let me assist you. Your shuttle has no weapons. If you come here, you will die. Then I will die helping a friend." Tejo laughed. It hurt to laugh. Everything hurt. "We are not friends, Sunwoo. We have spoken maybe 5 times. That makes us family." Tejo wanted to argue, but he did not have the energy. Instead, he focused on the enemy ship in front of him. Gorath's command vessel was charging its weapons. He could see the energy building in its cannons, growing brighter and brighter. "Fine," he said, "but stay behind me. Do not do anything stupid." "I am Korean," Sunwoo replied. "We invented stupid bravery." Despite everything, Tejo smiled. The command vessel fired. It was not a single shot. It was everything. Every cannon, every missile launcher, every weapon on the ship fired at the same time. The space between them became a wall of destruction. Tejo moved the Titan forward. His shields were failing. His armor was melting. He could feel the heat even inside the cockpit. Warning messages filled every screen. The Titan's computer was telling him to eject, to escape, to save himself. He turned off the warnings. "Neural load at 700%, Minji reported in the command center. Her voice was barely a whisper. "This is not possible. Human brains cannot survive this. Nothing can survive this." Lieutenant Yuna was crying now. She watched the Titan push through the wall of fire, watched it lose pieces of itself with every second, watched it keep going anyway. "Come on, Tejo," she whispered. "Come on." Inside the Titan, Tejo was no longer thinking. His conscious mind had shut down. What remained was something deeper, something older. It was the part of humans that had survived ice ages and famines and plagues. It was the part that refused to give up, even when giving up was the smart choice. His hands moved on their own. His feet pressed controls without his permission. His voice gave commands that he did not remember speaking. The Titan raised its plasma blade. Half of its body was gone now. One leg was destroyed. One arm was missing. Still fighting. "What is it doing?" Gorath demanded on his bridge. "Why will it not die?" The Titan was getting closer. It was pushing through the barrage, losing more of itself with every meter, but never stopping. "Warlord, it's going to reach us!" an officer shouted. Gorath finally felt something he had not felt in 200 years. Fear. "All power to forward shields," he ordered. "Stop that thing." But it was too late. The Titan reached the command vessel. Its remaining arm raised the plasma blade high, and then, with the last of its strength, it swung. The blade cut into the ship's hull. Teho pushed it deeper, aiming for the core, aiming for the heart of the beast. "Teho, you'll be caught in the explosion," Yuna screamed through the communication system. "Get out of there!" Teho heard her voice from very far away. He was already unconscious. His body had given up. But his hands never let go of the controls. The plasma blade found the core, and everything turned to light. The explosion lit up the darkness of space for millions of kilometers. It was so bright that people on distant planets could see it without telescopes. They would later call it the flash of amber, and they would tell stories about it for generations. In the command center of Station Amber 7, nobody spoke for a long time. They just stared at the screens, watching the place where 3 Vorn cruisers and 1 impossible human had been. There was nothing left, just light and heat and floating pieces of metal too small to identify. Lieutenant Yuna fell to her knees. She did not make a sound. She just covered her face with her hands and let the tears come. Admiral Dreth stood very still. His forearms hung at his sides. For the first time in his long life, he did not know what to say. It was Dr. Minji who broke the silence. "Wait," she said, pointing at one of the screens. "There is something there." In the middle of the debris field, something was moving. It was small, barely visible among the broken pieces of ships. But it was definitely there. "Magnify," Dreth ordered. The image grew larger, and then everyone in the room gasped. It was the Titan, or what was left of it. The giant machine was destroyed beyond repair. Both legs were gone, both arms were gone, most of its chest was melted away. All that remained was the head and part of the torso, floating silently through space. But the cockpit was intact, and inside the cockpit, still strapped to his chair, was Kang Teho. He was alive. Commander Sunwoo's shuttle reached him first. Sunwoo had ignored Teho's orders and flown closer during the battle, staying just far enough away to avoid the worst of the explosion. Now he carefully brought his shuttle next to the floating remains of the Titan and connected to what was left of its emergency airlock. When he opened the cockpit door, he found Teho unconscious and covered in blood. His hands were still holding the controls. Even in his sleep, even with his body completely broken, he had not let go. Sunwoo had to pry his fingers away, one by one. 6 days passed before Teho woke up. He was in a coalition medical bay, surrounded by machines that were keeping him alive. Doctors had worked on him for 32 hours straight, fixing damage that should have been fatal. His brain had swelled to twice its normal size. Every blood vessel in his eyes had broken. His heart had stopped 4 times during surgery. By all medical knowledge in the galaxy, he should have been dead. But humans, it seemed, did not follow medical knowledge. When Teho opened his eyes, the first thing he saw was Admiral Dreth standing beside his bed. "You are awake," Dreth said. It was not a question. Teho tried to speak, but his throat was too dry. A nurse quickly brought him water. He drank slowly, painfully, then tried again. "Did we win?" he asked. His voice was rough and weak. Yes, the Vorn fleet retreated. When their command vessel was destroyed, the remaining forces panicked. They fled coalition space. Dreth paused. It was the first time in 10 years that the Vorn retreated from anything. Teho closed his eyes. He was too tired to celebrate. We studied your neural recordings, Dreth continued. We analyzed everything your brain did during the battle. What we found was unexpected. Unexpected how? We designed the Titan for 10 pilots because we believed no single mind could handle the load. We were right about one thing. No Kelvon mind could handle it. No Torvon mind. No Silurian mind. Our species evolved for focus. We are very good at doing one thing perfectly. But we cannot do many things at once. Dreth made a clicking sound that Teho had never heard before. It sounded almost like respect. Humans are different. Your brains are messy and inefficient. You lose focus easily. You get distracted by everything. We always thought these were weaknesses. He paused. We were wrong. Teho did not know how to respond to that. He had never expected an alien admiral to admit being wrong about anything, especially about humans. The Coalition Council has made a request, Dreth said. They want humanity to provide pilots for our entire Titan fleet. They believe your species is the only one capable of controlling these machines. How many Titans do you have? Teho asked. 12 more, currently. We are building 30 additional units. Teho laughed. It hurt his chest, but he laughed anyway. You want us to fly giant death machines for you? A few days ago you thought we were too primitive to use a bathroom. A few days ago I had not seen a human destroy 3 warships by himself. Dreth's black eyes looked at Teho with something that might have been curiosity. Your species is strange. You are physically weak. Your technology is basic. But you have something we do not, a willingness to fight beyond all reason. A refusal to accept impossible odds. We call it stubbornness, Teho said. We are beginning to call it terrifying. In the months that followed, everything changed. Humanity's position in the coalition went from nothing to everything. Where humans had once been treated like primitive animals, they were now treated like precious weapons. The first human Titan squadron graduated 6 months after Teho's battle. There were 20 pilots, each one trained to do what should have been impossible. They called themselves the Mad Apes, after a name the Vorn had started using for humans in fear. Teho became their commander, though he could no longer pilot a Titan himself. The damage to his body was too severe. But he trained every new pilot personally. He taught them how to split their minds into pieces. He taught them how to be human. The war with the Vorn ended 2 years later. The final battle involved 8 Titans, all piloted by humans, destroying the Vorn homeworld's defense fleet in less than an hour. The Vorn surrendered unconditionally. They had no choice. On the day the peace treaty was signed, Teho stood in the back of the room, watching the Vorn leaders bow before the coalition. He was wearing a simple uniform with no medals. He did not want medals. He had only wanted one thing. Lieutenant Yuna stood beside him. She had been promoted many times since the battle at Amber 7, but she still stayed close to him. They had become friends, then something more than friends. Are you happy? She asked him quietly. Teho thought about it. He thought about the pain he still felt every day from his injuries. He thought about the friends who had died in the war. He thought about all the things he had lost. Then he thought about the station that still floated in space, full of people who were alive because of him. He thought about the pilots he had trained, the battles they had won, the lives they had saved. I am alive, he said finally. My people are respected. The war is over. He smiled. That is enough. Outside the building, a crowd was waiting. Humans, Kelvins, Torvins, Silurians, and dozens of other species stood together, cheering and celebrating. Many of them held signs with pictures of the Titan. Some of them had painted their faces to look like the machine's metal head. When Teho walked out, the crowd roared. They chanted his name. They reached out to touch him like he was something holy. He was not comfortable with fame. He had never wanted to be a hero. He had just been a maintenance technician who refused to let his friends die. But as he looked at the crowd, at all the different species standing together, he realized something important. It did not matter what he wanted. What mattered was what he had done. He had shown the galaxy that humans were not weak, not primitive, not worthless. He had shown them that one ordinary person, with enough determination and enough stubbornness, could change everything. The crowd parted as he walked through them. Commander Sun Wu walked behind him. And somewhere in the sky above, the stars were shining, waiting for the next adventure. The war was over, but the story of humanity was just beginning. And it all started with a maintenance technician named Kong Taeho, who simply refused to let his friends die.